cheap knockoff versus the original one-up composite pedals. These pedals may look the same, but I can assure you they're not. Ooh. The pins just snapped clean off. What the hell? Now I'm all about finding a good price on a set of pedals, and I've seen guys like Seth from Berm Peak test knockoff pedals and really have no issues with them.
The Fuker pedals.
But that's where today's video gets a little interesting, because I noticed some major differences between these knockoff pedals and the original one-ups. When searching for the pedals I wanted online, I actually found these one-up composites on sale for under $40, which I was pretty happy about. But just right below them, Rockbros comes along offering their knockoff version for under $25. They both come in multiple colors, so you can get colors to match your bike like I did with the orange on mine. They're both made of similar materials with a nylon kind of composite material, alloy spindles. On the one-ups, it does mention steel in the material list as well. And we'll get to that a little bit later when we start tearing these pedals apart and really putting them to the test. But I have to admit, I was interested in how Rockbros was offering these pedals so much cheaper, and I decided I needed to purchase both sets, throw one pedal on each side of my bike, put these pedals through the ultimate beatdown test to find out for me which pedals are right, and to help you guys decide knockoff versus the original one-up pedals. Which one is right for you? And I started noticing some major differences right out of the bag. When I got these things, the one-up pedals came in this nice box to help keep these things protected and looking good. The Rockbros pedals, on the other hand, the box was completely destroyed. The pedals kind of just almost fell out of the bag, which immediately had me questioning the quality of these knockoff pedals. Now, before we get to me throwing one of these pedals on each side of my bike and running them through that beatdown test, I just want to give a good overview of how these pedals feel. We'll go over the measurement, the weight of each one of these, and kind of tear them apart to see what's inside. Oh, and I got chapters down there along the bottom, so feel free to kind of skip around and watch whatever part is interesting to you. I'm going to try and include as much information about these pedals in this video, and then have those chapters down below so you guys can kind of just skip back and forth if you want to watch sections or rewatch certain sections. Now, when you have one of these pedals in each one of your hands, you can immediately start to feel the difference between the two pedals. The one-up pedals feel just a little bit more refined. The edges feel just a little bit smoother compared to the Rockbros pedals that just feel, like I said, not quite as smooth, not quite as refined. On the spindles right there, you can see there's some different material those are made out of. This black kind of alloy versus that more like stainless steel looking alloy right there. And you can tell there's some differences in the spindles right there. And we'll get a little bit more into the quality of these two pedals as we start to tear them apart. And definitely, like I showed a little sneak peek of when we talk about the pins on these pedals, which I would think, you know, just be able to be the same quality material, but apparently not. Now, the Rockbros pedals are just a tiny bit bigger. You can kind of see right there. Let's go ahead and get an exact measurement on these things. The thickness of these Rockbros pedals, about 15, and the thickness of the one-up pedals, we'll just round it off and say about 14 millimeters right there. So a little bit thicker on the Rockbros pedals. You got a 116 by 110 for the length and the width. And on the one-up pedals, you got 113 by 104, 105 about. So the Rockbros pedals are just a little bit bigger. Now, as far as the weight goes, let's see, try and get a better angle so you guys can check this out. The Rockbros pedals are coming in at 209 grams, and the one-up pedals 183 grams. So yep, a little bit lighter, and you could feel that in your hand. Rockbros pedals are just, you know, that tiny bit bigger, but I think some of that weight also has to do with the cheaper materials that are made when they build these pedals. All right, now it's time to pull these things apart. We're gonna start with the Rockbros. Taking off that outside cap right there. Pretty dry in there. There's not really any grease. There was no thread locker on that, which is what I would kind of like to see for something like a pedal that could potentially come loose. You know what? Let's go ahead and take apart the 1-up pedals and see how those look just initially right inside of this bolt. All right, so that's a little bit harder to unscrew. And that's because they actually have thread locker on there. What do you know? Look at that. All right, now let's look inside. And inside, not only can you see some grease inside, but this pedal, when you took off that outside cap, the only thing that was in there was this extra spacer right there. And other than that, it went straight to the bearing. So any dirt that gets inside there is gonna go straight to the bearing. On the 1-up pedals, you see it's got the outside cap right here. Inside of there, there is yet another cap. Let me get that one off. That's protecting the bearing from getting any dirt in it. So that's definitely, you know, over time, if there's any dirt that's going to get into the first one, this is the second one. Also, you can see the grease in there, and the bearing is a little bit bigger than the tiny little bearing that's on this one right here with no grease on it. So some definite concerns right off the bat when you open this thing up, start taking it apart, and just look at the difference from the 1-up, original 1-ups to some knockoff Rockbros. Let's just go ahead and keep disassembling these pedals and see what else we find. Is reverse thread? Oh, there's a reverse thread on that one. Yep, got even more grease down inside there, all around that bearing. Comes right out. You can see plenty of grease on that spindle. Easy pedals to take apart and service. Got this dust seal right here on the end. Looks like a high quality pedal that you can easily take apart and service. But let's go ahead and compare the Rockbros pedals. So we already got the bolt taken off there. Underneath that bolt, there's that bearing that appears to have no grease on it at all. Let's go ahead and, okay. Goodness gracious. So on the 1-up pedals, it just came right out super easy. You can check this thing. If the spindle was bent, you could easily check it, you know, or you can resurface this thing, re-grease it, check the bearing inside there. On the Rockbros pedals, good God, I can't freaking get this thing out of here. I'm gonna have to try and like hammer it out or something. All right, I'm gonna take the nut, put it back in on top of that spindle right there on the Rockbros pedal so that I can hammer away at it, I guess, without ruining these pedals. All right, there you go. So I got that nut back on there. I'm gonna go ahead, grab a hammer. Goodness gracious. Finally, this thing is coming out after hammering it like that. All right, let's get that nut back off there. Pull this apart and see what it looks like. All right, that out. So there is grease inside of there. The spindle is, you know, a little bit bigger than the 1-up, which is probably where some of that extra weight comes from. The threads also on this one look not quite as fine as the 1-up pedal threads, which means that you're not going to be able to get those fine adjustments to kind of tighten that pedal down. If if it starts to loosen up over time. Let's go ahead and see how it is to reinstall back in there. All right. So the dust seal, what it is this dust seal just compresses against the plastic. It doesn't actually go inside at all to really seal it. It just kind of compresses against the end of it right there, which is probably why it was a little bit stuck from the original assembly. Versus the one-up pedal, you can see that the dust seal, you can see that little rim right there. The dust seal actually goes inside of the pedal, all the way inside to actually seal inside of there. The Rockbros pedals dust seal, not quite as refined. Combine that with the fact that, you know, this end cap has an additional protection there for the dust, and I think you're gonna get a one-up pedal, if I did a long-term review, that would last a lot longer than the Rockbros. So if watching me take those pedals apart and see the difference on the quality inside those pedals didn't concern you enough, then you guys are definitely gonna wanna watch this next clip, because I took these things out. Like I said, I wanna kind of put them through the ultimate test. So I decided rock strikes and drops would be a good way to test kind of the grip of these pins, how these pedals handled some force landing from a flat drop, and then the strength of these pins and the strength of the composite on these pedals, getting a good, nice rock strike on there. So I found these good little blocks to do drops off. It kind of started with the 1 block for me to be able to get warmed up, went up to the 2 block, and then went ahead and hit the 3 block. Unfortunately, that was the highest drop I could hit for the day, but it still gave me a good test for how these pedals were handling it and the amount of grip. I couldn't really tell the difference between the 2 pedals left to right. Both had really good grip, both held up just fine to those drops. So that was no issue regardless of whether you had the Rockbros or the one-up pedals. However, the next test, when I went and found a rock, I tried to find like a type of rock you would find on the trails, and you hit that nice little pedal strike, the pins just snapped clean off. What the hell? And you can see right there that the pins sheared completely off of the Rockbros pedals. So when that pedal hit the rock, and it was, you know, not the hardest rock strike. I've definitely, you know, I've had rock strikes that hard when I'm riding on pedals in the past. When it hit the rock, every single pin that hit that rock sheared completely off, which means you pretty much wouldn't be able to use that pedal again without replacing the pins. On the other side, on the one-up pedal, when I hit the rock, and I tried to hit it with about the same amount of force, the one-up pedal pins were totally fine, which surprised me that even down to the pins, the Rockbros pedals are made out of cheaper materials. So for me, that led me, you know, to really trust in my decision to stick with more reputable brands. I'm all about finding good budget products. I'm definitely not judging any of you guys if you want to use the Rockbros pedals, but after doing these tests, you can see that the quality, there's a reason why those things are so cheap. It's basically, you know, just a Chinese company that makes knockoff products. They, you know, basically make a carbon copy of these one-up pedals, or maybe they send a Chinese spy balloon over.
Break one, that's the last one.
But on a serious note, leave a comment below. Let me know which pedals you guys have on your bike, if you guys would ride the Rockbros pedals, if you got any other questions or you want to see me run these pedals through any other tests. I don't think Amazon is going to let me return these Rockbros pedals after what I did to them. But most of all, you guys, as I always say at the end of every video, get stoked, go ride, and have some fun, people.